Hi guys, and welcome back to another video for the scripting tutorial series. In today's video we will be covering object properties as well as attributes. I will first tell you how to reference an object through a script, then how to get and modify its properties, and finally how to create, get and modify an object's attributes. Alright, before referencing an object, you have to first of all create it. So I will first create a part in the workspace, which I will just call player, for example. I'll make it red and I'll just make it kind of like if it was a square. Alright, so we will be we will be modifying this object's properties as well as creating custom attributes for it. So I'll just create a script in server script service. And in order to reference an object in a script, you will first need to understand how the Explorer works. So the Explorer is made up of like multiple instances, and each instances has multiple properties. Instances are the same as objects, alright? So you can see how here the game is made up of all these instances. But in our case, we will be focusing on the workspace. So inside workspace, the instance workspace has multiple other instances: the camera, the terrain, the spawn, the base plate, and finally our part, which is the player, right? So when referencing an object through a script, you will need to tell it in which instances the object is located in. So in our case, if we want to reference this part called player, we'll need to type game.workspace.player, right? Since first of all the part is inside the game, then inside the workspace, and then inside the workspace there is the player. In this case, player would be our part. So since we will be working with this part later on, we will store it in a variable. So I'll just call this variable player, and I will store this game.workspace.player. Alright, so now if we were to print this, you will see how it printed player. So in this case, it just prints kind of, when printing an instance, it will just print the name of this instance. But if you click it, you will see how I automatically select the part. Alright, so now that we know how to reference objects, we will see how to get an object's properties. So first of all, we will see which properties our object has. So if you don't know how to see an object's properties, you have to go in this tab called view, and then here enable toggle properties. So now in my case, I have it located here, but you might want to have it somewhere else. So whenever we click an object, its properties will show up here in this panel. So our part player, we can see how it has a property called brick color, another cast shadow, another one called color. Alright, so it has a lot of different properties, and each one does a different thing. So imagine we wanted to know which transparency our part has, right? So to access an object's properties, we will need to do whichever part we are referencing to dot, and here the property name, in our case transparency. Right, so now if we run this, we will see how it will print 0. See, since our part has a transparency of 0. Okay, now you need to know that we could also do like the following, right? So just doing game.workspace.player, and then here typing whichever the property we want to get, right? So this would also work. Okay, this is really just the same, but we will be using a variable just to make our code better. So I will just do the same thing I did before. Okay, so now imagine we change this part's transparency to 0.8, for example. Now see how our part is now transparent, and if we run this code, now instead of 1 it will tell us 0.8, and these decimals is just an error many programming languages have with floating numbers, right? Which means just, well, it's very hard to explain and it's quite complex, so I won't tell you much about it, but let's just carry on with the video. All right, so now imagine we wanted to modify a part's property, right? So imagine we wanted to modify, in our case, the transparency of this object. We'll just type the part dot the property equals its new value, right? So in our case, property would be the transparency, and new value will be, I don't know, for example, 0.3, but 0.3, right? So now we can also try and print it again to make sure it does it. But now if we run this, we will see how the part's transparency changed. It went from 0.8 to 0.3, right? And if we check just the part's property, you can see how instead of 0.8 it does say 0.3. So now that will be pretty much everything about properties. So now we will see how to create, get, and modify custom attributes, which will be pretty much just properties which you create yourself. All right, so I'll just erase this. Okay, now first of all, you will need to know what attributes are. So if we now go here to our part and scroll all the way to the bottom, we can see this section which is called attributes. If we click this plus sign here, it will pop up this window where we need to type the name of our attribute and then the type. You can see how there are a lot of types an attribute and a property can be, such as color 3, vector 3, C-frame. Alright, but we will cover those in the next video. So let's just imagine we wanted to create an attribute called health, right? We type here the name, and then in this case our type, the attribute's type, would be a number. So we just click save, and you can see how here now inside attributes there's this new property which is called health, and now we can set whichever value we want. So imagine in our case health will start off being 100. So that would be the way to do it manually, right? But through a script we can do it in a different way. So I'll just delete this attribute here by clicking in this gear icon and clicking delete. Now imagine we wanted to create this same attribute but through a script. We will just do player column set attribute health, well, in our case the name of the attribute and then the value. So it will be health and then whichever value we want it to have. So now if we run this, we will see how the part already has this attribute health with the value 30, which is the one I typed in here. So one thing which you may notice is that when creating a custom attribute, we do not need to specify which type this attribute is gonna have, right? So that's good to know. Now this function, okay, will also work, well, it's the same function as the one you would use to modify an object's attributes, right? So if you just did this, right, waited for 5 seconds, well, or 10, and then change the health to 0, for example, well, I'll just then change this 30 to 100. Okay, so if you set this, well, in this case you would create and set the health attribute to 100, you would wait 10 seconds and then change it again. So now if we run this, we will see how at the start our part will have 100 health, but after a while, after 10 seconds, it will have 0. See? So that would be how to modify an object's attributes. And in order to get an object's attributes, you will need to use player, well, in the part, right? Column get attribute. So, and here just the name, in our case, health. So now if we print this, right, let's just print it here at the start and then at the end, you will see how it will print first of all 100, and after 10 seconds when it changes the attribute to 0, it will print 0. See? So now I will tell you what happens when you try to get an attribute which doesn't exist. So I just tried here to access the health attribute before it's actually created. Okay, so I'll just erase these last 3 lines. Okay, and now before actually creating the attribute, because remember how the part starts off with no attribute at all. So now if we try to print this part's health attribute, you will see how it will print nil, right? So that's how you would know whether or not a part has a certain attribute or not. Okay. Alright, so that will be everything for today's video. This was a short one, I think, but in the next video, as I said before, we will be covering different types of properties, right? So if I just insert a part, you will see how this part, the properties of it, they have different types of values, right? So cast shadow is a boolean, right? True or false. Material would be an enum. If you don't understand what I'm saying, don't worry, because I'll talk about it in the next video, right? Transparency would be a number, right? Locked would be another, right? Name would be a string. Size would be vector 3, right? So you get what I'm saying. So for today's video, we won't cover this, but in the next video, we will cover the most important data types when working with objects. Alright, so if you like this video, make sure to like the video and subscribe. So YouTube's algorithm helps more people find my channel and hopefully learn scripting from it. So also comment down below if you think I missed anything important, and I will mention it during the next video. Bye.